Welcome to NHL Quick Hits. I'm David Crosby here with Steele Roden, bringing you a preview of the Stanley Cup final featuring the Montreal Canadiens, who are looking to end Canada's 28-year cup drought, and they face the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are on a quest for back-to-back titles. There are plenty of juicy storylines, elite players, and intriguing subplots in this series, but Steele, let's start here. Who is the most important player on each team in this matchup?
Well, without question, I think for the Montreal Canadiens, it has to be Carey Price. He is the most important player, and he's majority of the reason why they're going to the Stanley Cup Finals this year. You know, he's been unbelievable all postseason, taking down the best team in the North Division in 7 games, and then of course we saw what happened with the Winnipeg Jets in the second round series against them, and then 6 games for the Vegas Golden Knights as well, who were a great team coming out of that West Division, taking down the Colorado Avalanche, but you know, he's allowed 2 goals or less in 8 out of his 9 last games. So that just says it a lot right there. He's just on a different planet right now. He's playing out of his mind. It's been incredible to watch. You know, a 934 save percentage, 2.02 goals against average. He's going to need his best game going up against this powerful Tampa Bay Lightning team, but he is the most important player for the Montreal Canadiens. And then over for the Tampa Bay Lightnings, you know, obviously Nikita Kucherov is leading their team in points at 27, but I think Brayden Point is the most important player in this on this Tampa Bay Lightning team. 14 goals, that 9-game goal streak that he had going on, which you know, unfortunately ended for him in that Game 6 against the Isles. But that streak was just unbelievable, and he's been playing some of his best hockey. It seems like he does turn up. He plays some of his best hockey in the postseason for the Lightning. You know, it just seems time and time again he's always in the right spot, continuing to make a difference in these games for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So just like Brayden Point and the Tampa Bay Lightning sharpshooters, they're going to need their best game going up against Carey Price and the Montreal Canadiens.
I find it hard to disagree with you. And I think those two guys have really put themselves at the top of any discussion when you're talking about two of the most impact players. But what's kind of interesting to me is how Montreal might be able to shut down Tampa's top line, including Brayden Point, just based on how great of a job Philip Deneau and that entire line has done, shutting down all 3 teams they face, their top line so far in the playoffs. And I don't necessarily think there's a huge gap between Tampa's top line and, let's say, Vegas's top line or Toronto's top line. Those are 2 really skilled, high-scoring lines. So I think some of that burden might fall to the second line on Tampa or some of their depth players who, to their credit, have stepped up so far in this series. Let's talk about the public pressure that has been on referees to call more penalties and stop that let them play mentality that we see every single year here in the playoffs. Do you think we're going to see more power play opportunities in this round? And which of these playoff leading units is more dominant in your mind? Montreal's penalty kill, who actually hasn't allowed a goal since Game 5 against Toronto in round 1, or of course the playoff best Tampa power play?
Yeah, well, to start off with the officiating, you know, obviously there's going to be some error and some missed calls there. You know, it's just a human effect and it's human nature. We're not going to get it right every single time. Something's going to go wrong and, you know, a ref might miss it. But for me, honestly, I think the officiating has been quite good so far this postseason. And I think they're going to be really quick to take control of the games if it does get out of hand. You know, I think there's not going to be too many penalties, you know, more than we were usually seen in the games. But regular penalties like high sticking or tripping, I think they're going to let the players play. And I think that's the good job that we've seen so far with some of the officiating in this postseason as well. But over to the players, you know, it's going to be tough. And I think without question, it's Tampa Bay's power play that is a lot scarier than Montreal's penalty kill. And we know how aggressive Montreal can be on the penalty kill. We've seen it 4 times this postseason where they scored a goal on the penalty kill. They've been great, like you said, since the first round. 4th game, I believe, against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So they need to be really focused and, you know, really take their time and jump on the right opportunities with the aggressiveness on the penalty kill. Because if you're too aggressive, Tampa Bay can make you pay like that. Like I've talked about so many times, they have so many options out there. Kucherov and Stamkos both on right and left side wings. Hedman running the point, and then Brayden Point just sliding right there into the slot position with Killorn in front of the net. So you can't be too overly aggressive with the Tampa Bay Lightnings, but I believe the Montreal Canadiens can find a way to stop them like we've seen so many times so far this postseason.
I think it's Just such an awesome story, that Philip Deneau line. Back to them again, just how they can not only get it done at 5-on-5, but also when two of those players are on the penalty kill, and just how amazing they've been. They've actually outscored their opponents 3-0 in their last 30 penalty kills. That's pretty much unheard of for any team to do now. Like you said, they're going to have their hands full with this Tampa power play. And I actually think the referees, I mean, I don't want to beat up on them too much, but the things that I haven't liked are just the obvious penalties. You mentioned high sticking. Like, I get if it's an incidental one and it just barely brushes a guy, and I hate the diving that guys always try to sell the calls, but there's been so many high cross checks and just, all this unnecessary activity where even if they just give a penalty to each side, coincidentals, we'll see some 4-on-4. Like you said, I think they're going to have to grab control of this series early on, because the NHL does not want the focus to be on the refereeing when you have a team like Montreal finally make the Stanley Cup Finals and that great storyline in Tampa going for the repeat. Let's predict some more hardware to be handed out here, Steele. Which player is the leading candidate for the Conn Smythe Trophy given out to the playoff MVP for each team in your mind right now?
Well, I think it's the two guys we've already talked about and that I thought were the most important players for each of their teams. And for the Montreal Canadiens, it goes to Carey Price again. He's 12-5 so far this postseason. Like I said, a 2.02 goals against average, a 934 save percentage. This is some of the best Carey Price we've seen in a long time. And I think he's proving to everyone why he's still one of the top goalies in the league right now. And, over to the Lightning, it's Braden Point for me. Even though Nikita Kucherov has been fantastic, dealing with a little bit of injury right now, but he still has 27 points. But Braden Point is on a different level for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's 53% on faceoffs, 3 game-winning goals so far in those 18 games that he's played. He has a 32.6% shooting percentage so far in these playoffs, which is just absolutely incredible. Like we've talked about, that 9-game goal streak. He's got 14 goals so far. It's just the way he skates, the way he maneuvers through everybody on the ice, the way he can find areas on the ice where he's just not seen, and the way he's lasered focused on finding pucks and getting it to his stick so he can shoot right away. So just the things I've watched from Braden Point so far in this postseason has been absolutely incredible to watch. And for me, he deserves the Conn Smythe Trophy.
Braden Point, one of my favorite players to watch, that water bug style, just the way he darts around the ice. You mentioned his elusiveness, just such a great talent. And I'm a little jealous of Tampa Bay and how stacked that lineup is, because when you have a guy like Kucherov who's leading the playoffs with 27 points, but you're clearly saying there's another guy on his team who is, leaps and bounds better than him so far in the playoffs. That's ridiculous in itself. But one guy I think that could maybe come up that we haven't talked about yet is Andrei Vasilevskiy. He now has 4 consecutive series clinching shutouts dating back to last postseason. That's insane. Every time this guy needs to come up big, he delivers for Tampa Bay. And we've talked so many times about how Price is getting it done for Montreal. I think that star power on Tampa Bay does sometimes take some of that attention away from Andrei Vasilevskiy. And if Montreal's shutdown line can kind of take Kucherov and Point off the score sheet in this series, and Tampa Bay still manages to win, I think Vasilevskiy could sneak in front and take that trophy home. So what's one factor, Steele, that we haven't discussed yet that you think will play a big role in this series?
Yeah, I think the biggest factor for me is the physicality that the Montreal Canadiens have brought to every single series they played so far. And a lot of credit has to go to Brendan Gallagher in that first line that we see in Phil Deneau, as well as our Terry Lehkonen. And a lot of people don't like playing against Brendan Gallagher. He likes to aggravate players, and we saw that last series against the Vegas Golden Knights, specifically against Alex Pietrangelo. The entire series just seemed to be frustrated by Gallagher out there. But I think it's the physicality. I believe a lot of the Tampa Bay players, like many players this postseason, are a little bit more banged up than usual. We saw that cross check from Nikita Kucherov, which took him out of Game 6. He only played at 46 seconds. He was out within the first minute, which was a nasty cross check from Scott Mayfield. Some of those penalties that were missed, like you were talking about. But I think a lot of those guys on the Lightnings are a little bit more banged up than usual, and that's why I think Braden Point is going to need to be big in this playoff series against the Canadiens. So with that nagging injury that we've seen to Nikita Kucherov, a lot of that is going to depend on how Braden Point and Steven Stamkos play up front for them. So if the Montreal Canadiens can keep up that physicality, that grittiness, frustrate the players of the Tampa Bay Lightnings, just make sure that they feel your presence every time you and them are on the ice. So that's the biggest key for me is physicality.
I think that's going to play a huge factor. No doubt. If Montreal can carry that physical edge, we've seen it all playoffs long. They can get teams off their game and they can score when they need to. As long as they keep that game close, Montreal always has a chance with Price back there. And that, I think one thing maybe that we haven't discussed yet that I think could play another big role in this series is the defenseman. I think Shea Weber and Jeff Petrie, who we've mentioned in a couple series previews before this, they're going to need to be great for Montreal to win this series. I mean, I like that those guys can be on the ice for pretty close to 50 minutes in a 60-minute game. And if they can control the play, keep that dangerous Tampa line out of their zone, and hopefully get the puck up to some of those dangerous playmakers that Montreal has. I mentioned their second line that I thought was the best line in the Vegas series, of course, with Caulfield, Suzuki, and Toffoli. They've been absolutely dynamite. They took it up another notch against Vegas. So if those guys can produce, it'll put a little bit of heat on Tampa Bay. Steele, I have no idea what way you're going to go in this series. So give me your prediction. Who is hoisting the Stanley Cup?
Well, I was clearly off on that last series between Montreal and the Vegas Golden Knights there. Obviously, me picking Vegas in 5. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm going with the Montreal Canadiens in 6 games. And I think a lot of it, like we've talked about, Carey Price is just on a different level. You've talked about Andrei Vasilevskiy being up there for consideration for the Conn Smythe. I totally agree with that. But to me, Price has just been on a different level. We've seen it every single series so far against the Vegas Golden Knights, the Winnipeg Jets, the Toronto Maple Leafs. He just seems to be out of this world right now, playing out of his mind. So Carey Price, as well as you had the factor that you're getting it from everywhere. You have these young guys that are producing for you as well, in Suzuki and Caulfield. The veteran experience on the fourth line of Corey Perry and Eric Stahl getting it done for you as well, especially Corey Perry on the power play. Even though the first line isn't producing as much, they're still doing the physicality and the grittiness that is aggravating the top players on their opponent's team. So when the second line is continuing to get going with Caulfield and Tyler Toffoli, everything's just meshing right now for the Montreal Canadiens. I believe they're going to take it in 6 games, and it's going to be one hell of a party for Montreal Canadian fans.
Love the pick, Steele, and I think both teams are going to be happy with my prediction because I've picked against Montreal for 3 straight series, and they've won all 3 times. So I feel like it would almost just be wrong of me to switch over and pick Montreal at this point and just jinx it for them. So I'm going to go with Tampa Bay in 7. I think this is going to be a great series. I think if Tampa Bay can win that first game, it's going to be huge for them because they have yet to lose consecutive games so far this series. So if they can get that lead, I believe they can hold it, especially with Andrei Vasilevskiy and his track record in clinching games. That's going to do it for today's episode. On behalf of Steele Roden, I'm David Crosby. Enjoy the Stanley Cup final, and thanks for tuning in to NHL Quick Hits.